Bucket for bucket, let's go shot for shot. Bucket for bucket, let's go shot for shot. I called the night, so let's see who better.
All right, welcome to Bucket for Bucket podcast. I am Kenny Saint-Vil, and my guest today is Alford Corriette. Alfred, thanks for joining us today. On today's episode, we are going to discuss, some WNBA. Obviously, there's a lot of discourse going on. We're going to discuss some Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese. We're going to discuss the WNBA upcoming awards. We're also going to discuss the playoffs briefly, and a lot but I'm just happy to tap in and chat with Alfred. Alfred, what's up? Welcome to Bucket for Bucket podcast.
Thanks a lot for having me, Kenny. I'm really excited to get down into all the nitty-gritty of what's been going on. So, let's get to it.
Oh, yeah, let's get to it. But before we get to it, I definitely want you to introduce yourself, tell your background. Who are you? How long have you been covering the WNBA? And what are you working on right now?
Sure. So, I cover the New York Liberty and the WNBA for her Hoop Stats, doing just general coverage of the team, but then also other things. Do a little bit of international stuff on the side, just covering, what's been happening in the up-and-coming scene and what's happening in the European scene. Obviously, if you watch the Liberty, you'll know a lot of the European prospects were key for our team this season. So, just keep in tune and, what the next generation looks like over there. I've been covering the Liberty for about 2 years now. So, excited to continue doing that.
Awesome, man. And just to touch on your international, I didn't even know you was like that. I got on Twitter, X, formerly known as Twitter, but you drop a lot of gems and a lot of knowledge on international play, and what got you into that, just following the international scene.
Yeah, so I've always just been curious on, what's happening on the other side of the world, because, a lot of times we're focused more on what's happening on the collegiate level and seeing that path goes up. But, there are just so many gems and so many players that you see come over and you're like, let me see what's happening over there. Why are teams looking at these particular players? Why are teams, really heavily invested in going over there and looking? And, there's a whole bunch of talent that's going to be coming over in the next couple of years. So really just seeing, what they can bring to the table now. That's what's gotten me interested in it.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And is there any player right now who's not particularly in the W, or do you think is going to make a stamp that, we should look out for in these coming years?
Oh, of course. You have Dominique Malanga, who's a possible first-round pick next year from France. We saw a little bit in the Olympics, 6'6", very athletic. A lot of teams are really interested in what she can do. There's players like Awa Pham from Spain, 6'4", same idea, length, athleticism, defense, things like that. There's a player from Australia that I like a lot, Saffron Shields, who, she'll be interesting, a 6'2" guard who can pull up, who can shoot, who can handle. Think of a Caitlin Clark-esque type of player, but maybe a little bit bigger at that 6'2" size. So, that would be interesting to see what she can bring to the W at some point if she comes over. So there's just a ton of talent, and, just keep an eye out.
Oh, yeah, man. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. And that's a perfect segue, because you just said a name that is dominating the WNBA waves, Caitlin Clark. And right now, you can't mention Caitlin Clark without mentioning Angel Reese and vice versa. Right now, there's a lot of back and forth going on right now. And obviously, Caitlin Clark is, the front runner for Rookie of the Year to many. To some still have Angel Reese. There's a lot of discourse going on. So, but before I even go into what your thoughts are in the Rookie of the Year race, let's just chop it up on what's going on right now. Background on both players. Obviously, Caitlin Clark is doing her thing for the WNBA, but her team right now is hot. The Indiana Fever are completely one of the hottest teams in the WNBA. So I just want to speak about the impact of their game. What do you think the impact of Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese has been to the WNBA to this date?
Oh, I think there's multiple things. You can just think of the overall marketability of both players, what they're bringing, the hype, the fanfare, bringing that over from the college level to the pros. You see when it comes to the Indiana Fever, a lot of players maybe fans donning Hawkeye merchandise such as jerseys, same thing with the Sky Macy fans down in the LSU gear and whatnot. So, to have players, that captivated nationwide and now, get to bring their games to the pro level and then also succeeding at the pro level. It's not like they're necessarily in the background. They're playing huge roles on their teams. You talk about Caitlin Clark, spearheading an Indiana team that was bottom of the barrel for the past couple of seasons and now has a legitimate shot at the playoffs. And then you're looking at Angel Reese, someone who's, some people had questions about her game coming in, but has been, the league's best rebounder. And, she's really cementing a path for herself there. So you just to be able to see two players that can come in, generate fanfare, but also be productive with it, you have to really love it and what it means for the W moving forward.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So now speaking of that, so what do you think? How do you think their competitiveness has shaped the league? Has it intensified around the league, or do you think this competitive nature that we're seeing now has always been there?
I think it's a little bit of a mix of both. I think the competitive nature has always been there because, when you're playing in the WNBA, you're playing at the highest level. So there's always a desire to win, a desire to compete. But I think when you have Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, being successful on the teams, in the coming years, it's going to create a sense of parity, where you're going to have, it's not just maybe New York and Vegas or Minnesota or Connecticut you have to look out for. You have to think about the Indiana Fever as a possible team. The Chicago Sky early on in the season defeated the New York Liberty, which was a surprise. So you're seeing teams just be able to be tougher, and you're seeing deeper teams in terms of the playoff field. So I think with that level of competition, it's always been there. But now, when you have all of this behind it, it just takes it to another level.
Yeah. Also, Indiana also upset the Liberty also earlier in the season as well too. Yeah. So let's not forget that. Let's not forget that at all. Now, speaking on Stephen A. Smith, and well, let's continue with Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark, but Stephen A. Smith. My bad, Al. I don't know if you hear that. Do you hear the crying in the background? My wife and daughter just walked in. I
don't hear anything, but I can
understand cool. I just wanted to make sure. My bad. But yeah, so staying on the Caitlin Clark, obviously when it comes to Caitlin Clark, there's a lot of discourse with her name. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of back and forth. I don't know if you've even been able to tap into Angel Reese's podcast. I haven't tapped into the episode, but I did see some highlights. A lot of back and forth, a lot of different things that we can speak about, but I want to speak about specifically Stephen A. Smith and the discourse that's going on between him, Nancy Lieberman, and Cheryl Swoops. What are your thoughts on that's been happening? Because right now there's I'll start off with how I feel about it personally. What I saw from my take from it was Cheryl Swoops, gave her she gave a lot of hype. And, just for lack of better terms, she was giving a lot of credit to players like Kelsey Mitchell, Aaliyah Boston, and Indiana and Cohen. She left Caitlin Clark's name out of it. Stephen A. Smith took to the Stephen A. Smith show, whatever he wanted to do, and go online and kind of just, to me, I felt like he kind of berated Cheryl Swoops for not mentioning Caitlin Clark's name. And from that Stephen A. conversation, it kind of went over to Charles Barkley talking about the ladies of the NBA or WNBA are screwing this up with the Caitlin Clark situation and everything like that. For me, when I heard Cheryl Swoops, I took it from a sense of, at the start of the season, the Indiana Fever started 1-8, and it wasn't just that they started 1-8. There was a lot going on. You are on X, and you see everything that's happening. The players of the Indiana Fever, there was a point in the season, Aaliyah Boston had to just get off of social media. I don't know if she's back on, but she deactivated her X account. She got off of Instagram and stuff like that because everything that was coming from these Caitlin Clark fans and these new WNBA fans, and I felt like Cheryl Swoops took the opportunity to lift those players up and give them the credit that they deserve, because the Indiana Fever are absolutely hot right now. Caitlin Clark's play is amazing, but I don't want to forget about players like Kelsey Mitchell, who is on it's missed my mind. She's 20-point plus, 6 straight games. Lexi Hall is playing amazing. Aaliyah Boston is playing amazing. So I don't want to be long-winded, as I already have been, but I just want to hear your thoughts on the Stephen A's comments on Cheryl Swoops?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it was probably a bit expected because, now with the rise and popularity of the W, you're going to see some of these larger, figures, try to capitalize on whatever news or whatever is happening so they can talk about it. At the end of the day, I mean, I don't necessarily like, that you have this type of discourse or whatever friction is between Stephen A. Smith and involving legends like Nancy Lieberman and Cheryl Swoops, because now we're kind of putting a pall over what should be the discussion of two rookies that are playing fantastic in Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. But now, we're kind of talking about gossip and mess and all that other type of stuff, so, and I understand like where people are coming from, because again, like, if you look at like how when Caitlin Clark came in, it was, she's being targeted and, RW players, have it out for Caitlin Clark. So, if you leave Caitlin Clark's name out on a whatever blurb or whatever you're saying that's on the screen, that's going to be perceived as, oh, she doesn't like Caitlin Clark. And then some fans probably still have feelings, whatever, from when she went on to the Gilbert Arenas podcast. So, they're always going to be looking out for stuff to, try to find something negative or whatnot. But I think at the end of the day, really the focus should just be on what we're seeing, the level of greatness we're seeing from two rookies, and wanting to see both of them thrive on their respective teams. All this other hoopla, it's fun for some, it's going to get clicks, it's going to get views, it's going to get ratings, but really we should be focusing on what they're doing on the court.
Absolutely. And when we're talking about what they're doing on the court, we're talking about two rookies who are in a professional league, the WNBA. One leads the league in rebounding and the other leads the league in assists. So I'm going to say that one more time. One leads the league in rebounding, a league that Asia Wilson plays for, a league that Brianna Stewart plays in. Like, a rookie is coming in and she's really doing her thing and rebounding the basketball. And I love one thing that she said on her podcast: give her some grace time, give her some grace period. She's a rookie, and rebounding wins championships. Believe it or not, it definitely does win championships, and she's done that. So, definitely would love to see people give it that grace and everything like that. And as you said, it's hot right now, so these public figures are looking for their clickbait moments. I personally believe Stephen A. was looking for his Club Shay Shay moment, with the whole Cat Williams thing. If you want to go back to that, he's looking for his viral moment, and I think he kind of crossed the line. So we'll leave it at that. We're not going to go too much into that, but absolutely love what the rookies are doing, and each their own. And we're going to get into, some of the award discussions and stuff like that, which is the next topic. So again, another perfect segue. Let's just talk it to, unless you have anything else that you wanted to add to the, Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese discussions. Is there anything else you wanted to cross over on that?
No, I think, we can just, close out with saying, just let's see what the future beholds, because if this is year one of Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark, let's see what year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5 looks like, and see what that future looks like for the W. Exactly.
And it's in great hands. But yeah, look, topic 2, awards discussion, because right now we're at the end of, we're pretty much at the end, and I know a lot has been going on with the awards, but for me, I really feel like these are some tight races with the awards. I know a lot of people don't feel like the MVP race is a tight race, but I personally believe that, there's a lot that we can discuss on these. So, let's discuss the awards. I want to kick it off and speak about the current season awards and talk about MVP. Let's lead it off with MVP. Right now, the reigning MVP obviously is Brianna Stewart. Stewie is having a great second half of this season. I think that she's waking up with her recent play. But Al, I just want to speak to you about predictions of MVP. Who do you have for MVP?
Yeah, so I think, most people probably would say Asia Wilson is their favorite for the MVP right now. Brianna Stewart's having a fantastic second half of the year. Stewie's always going to be Stewie,
Yeah.
When you look at the statistical dominance that Asia Wilson is putting together for this Aces team, you have to really consider, where would the Aces be without that right now? Because, the Aces are, in the playoff hunt, but, they have at times looked a little shaky where you're like, are these the same Aces that we thought of as being a possible team that could three-peat? But, with Asia's been the one constant that's kept them steady. I think where it will be interesting to see is who else gets first place votes for this MVP nomination? Because, there've been questions on, is it going to be unanimous where all of the first place votes go to Asia, or will a player like Reese, who's been putting a fantastic season together in her own right, get some of those market shares? Could Sabrina Ionescu on the Liberty, who's also had a good season, could she get some, or maybe even Stewie get some more again this year? So I think it'll be interesting to see what the final breakout is. But I mean, I think, most will go with Asia Wilson as the MVP right now.
Okay, got you, Asia Wilson. And I want to ask this question because, again, her recent play has been really good. Do you believe, first of all, I'm glad that you mentioned Sabrina Ionescu's name, because I haven't heard Sabrina Ionescu's name enough in the MVP conversations. I know what Asia's doing is like historic, or historic, but Sabrina Ionescu, she still leads the league in first quarter point scoring. She's like really raised her play this season. She isn't just relying on the three ball. And to me, I think she's stepped up defensively. It's not something that you're always going to see on the stat sheet, but I think she's willing and she's making a better effort. So I'm glad that you even mentioned Sabrina Ionescu, who's been in the MIP conversations. But how do you feel? Do you feel that Caitlin Clark deserves any MVP votes with the way that she's been playing? Rookie year, 2 triple doubles. The Indiana Fever went from the last place team to clinching a playoff spot. First time in what is it? Was it 2008 or was it 18? I don't remember how long it was, but does Caitlin Clark deserve MVP consideration or votes at least? What do you think?
Well, that's actually a good point. Some people will look at Caitlin Clark as the biggest factor between Indiana going from, a lower tier team to now being a playoff team. You look at what Caitlin Clark is doing in terms of breaking records and just, like you said, leading the league in assists, but then also giving you scoring. And then another area where I think Caitlin Clark may not get as much credit is on the defensive end, just a little bit. I think Caitlin Clark can give you some stuff there, because in terms of rookies right now, she's top 5 in total steals and total blocks amongst rookies. So, that's something
blocks amongst rookies. Seriously?
Yeah.
Wow.
Top 5 in total blocks. So, that's an area of a game where, may not get as much pull. So I think it's really up to the voters on what they feel is the most valuable. I think they could look at what Caitlin Clark is doing for the Indiana Fever and say, that's something that's tremendous value just from where they were last year to now where they are this year, to be, in contention, like you said, beat the New York Liberty, who is number 1 in the league right now, and, to really have that momentum. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Caitlin Clark was to get a first place vote here or there.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be mad at it either. I know a lot of people are stuck on the unanimous MVP. For me personally, I don't have a pick, but if I did have a pick, my pick would have went to Nafisa Kali. I really think that she's playing MVP basketball, hands down. What Minnesota's doing. Her numbers are also great. I know they're not Asia's numbers, which look like they look crazy, but unanimous MVP. When I hear unanimous MVP, I think of Stephen Curry. So Steph, when he got that unanimous MVP, he averaged 30 points per game. I believe it was 6 rebounds, 5 assists, number 1 in 3-point shooting. And the Warriors were 73-9 that season. Correct me if I'm wrong. He got unanimous. So I'm not mad at that. But when you look at the Aces, and let me just, just make this cool. Like the Aces they moved up. They were around 5. I think at one point in the season, they even dropped as low as 6, but they're back up. So they're in the 4th place right now with Asia's numbers, and they don't look great. They don't look great as a whole. They don't look like the Aces that we know. Do we really give someone a unanimous MVP for 4th place? I know you can get an MVP still if you're, 6th place or whatever with whatever you do, but unanimous MVP is like, do you think this is a unanimous MVP season, being in the 4th place and, the team struggling defensively and they've lost to the Sparks twice, I think, this year?
Now, that's an interesting thing you bring up, Kenny, because I really think it depends on, what the voter standards are. Because, if you see some of the discourse that's been on social media, especially last year with the MVP, a lot of people said, their standard for MVP was, whoever is the best player on the best team. So if you're going to go by that metric, that either has to go to Brianna Stewart or Sabrina Ionescu this year. People say like statistical dominance. Okay, maybe that can go to Asia. But if you want someone that maybe has the blend of two, you may go with Nafisa Kaya, considering where Minnesota is in the rankings. I mean, Nafisa has been playing great. The numbers are there statistically, and her team is right now better than the Aces in the standings. But in terms of unanimous MVP, I think it's tough because just of like how many voters you're going to have out there, and they have their own opinions. I mean, I can definitely see where it may not be unanimous because, again, to your point where you bring up the example of Curry, where it's like, if maybe this was an Aces team that was in the Liberty spot and Asia was doing this as well, maybe some would lean to, okay, this is, hands down, the greatest performance, we're seeing that's worthy of the MVP. But given, how we have all of these intangibles where you have Liberty at first, you have Minnesota lower, but you have Nafisa playing well, like Asia statistically dominant, but the Aces are fourth. I think there's just so many intangibles that I don't know if you can give it unanimous, but it'll be interesting to see what the final results are.
Yeah, absolutely. And she's on her way to score 1,000 points, the first to ever do it. I'm gonna book that. I think she has that down pack. So yeah. So all right. So we're done with the MVP. Now let's discuss the next thing. The next hottest award right now is the Rookie of the Year. Like Rookie of the Year, mid-season, a lot of people at the start of the season, everybody saying Caitlin Clark. Angel Reese goes crazy with the double streaks, breaking records, rebounding. They have some signature wins, just as Indiana has signature wins. And then we start hearing this conversation of, hey, maybe Angel Reese is Rookie of the Year. Oh, hey, this, that, and the third. And who do you got for Rookie of the Year? Or who do you think is going to win?
So right now, I think the front runner probably has to be Caitlin Clark. I think in terms of just, what she's doing, not just from an assist standpoint, but like I said before, the scoring is there, the rebounding is there, and, the defense is there at times for her. And then she really has been the engine of this Fever push to a playoff contender. Whereas I think what may hold some people against Angel Reese is like where Chicago is in the standings versus, where Indiana is. And it may not necessarily be the best metric, but I think usually that factors into a lot of voters' decisions when they make these choices. But I think Caitlin Clark has been playing great, and it's no slight to Angel Reese whatsoever, because what Angel Reese is doing is historic, it's unprecedented, and you have to give it some props just the same. But I think, Caitlin Clark has probably done just maybe a little bit more that, is warranting of this award.
Yeah, and I feel like the deciding factor, one of the deciding factors besides that the triple-double the other day and the streak that they're going on, that's putting Caitlin in the front race is the fact, I'm going to say Kennedy Carter. So Kennedy Carter has been out for the Chicago Sky for, I forget how many games she's missed, but she's been out, let's say, a week or so. And while she's been out, the Chicago Sky has looked really bad. They haven't looked good at all. They haven't been winning games, so they're kind of like falling in it. Not many people are confident that they're going to end the season with the 8th seed. I sure hope they do, because I would love the story to see Angel Reese playing her first playoffs against a New York Liberty, Coach Teresa Weatherspoon coaching against her former team. That I just like that story, but it's not looking like it right now. So I also think the fact that they're losing games and, she's not her field goal percentage is not looking great. I think that's kind of, like making this easier for people to decide Caitlin. But something that I forgot to put in the notes that is literally just popping up in my head. I don't know if you saw Lisa Leslie's tweet regarding the Rookie of the Year, and she's under the impression we should pull Jason Kidd and Gary Grant Hill and split that Rookie of the Year. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, do you think that is like a mockery to the WNBA for doing something like that, or are you like, you wouldn't be mad at something like that?
I mean, I don't know if I would say it's a mockery. I mean, I wouldn't be particularly mad if they went that route, because I mean, I think it would just show, or highlight, how great Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark have been this season. Yeah. So I wouldn't be mad if people felt that way, that, we should split the award and just, share it. But I mean, I think that's an interesting decision. I know a lot of people may feel one way or the other about it, but I'm not mad at it if it was to go to that route.
Yeah, if it was to go to that route, I wouldn't be mad at it. But right now, the way that Caitlyn's playing and she's just like running away with it. If that were to happen, I can only imagine the discourse around the WNBA for that. So, yeah, we'll see how that goes. But again, Rookie of the Year, we got Caitlin Clark.
Maybe I might add one thing to that, Kenny.
Yeah,
if they were to share that award, does that now probably elevate that level of competition now? Because it's like Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark don't necessarily have that Rookie of the Year award over each other starting out. So now it's like, who's going to be that first to probably be like MVP, or who's going to be that first to the championship? So does that now like kind of create even another layer to this story, where if you give them that shared Rookie of the Year, how does that, now like elevate that competition between them?
That's a great that's a great point, man. That's a great point. I like that a lot. I think that would definitely elevate it to the next level, because you look at the competition at all levels, NBA, WNBA, especially coming into rookie year, and we have often compared them to Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, and you know how that story went in college going into the NBA. So I think that would definitely heighten the competition between those two a lot. It would. So let's go to the next award. Defensive Player of the Year. Defensive Player of the Year. Who do you got for Defensive Player of the Year, Al? Because I know a lot of people struggle with this. I personally struggle with this. I'll let you go first, and I'll tell you who I would like to see get the Defensive Player of the Year.
I'm with you on that same, but I'm struggling with this category as well, because I'd say the two right now, I'm torn between maybe Fee and Asia right now for Defensive Player of the Year, because what they're doing is just great on the defensive end. Fee has been fantastic in terms of forcing turnovers, blocking shots. Asia Wilson has been the same. One case for Asia Wilson is, like, where do the Aces look like without her interior defense? If you take that equation out, like, what do they look like?
Yeah.
So, I'm torn right now between Fee and Asia, but I'll let you go with, your decisions.
All right. So for me, it was, I see what you're saying with Asia. Surprisingly, I don't have Asia in my two, but I like Dejanay Carrington. I like Dejanay Carrington as Defensive Player of the Year. I think what she's doing with where her minutes increase has been phenomenal. I think she's stepped up and taken a challenge on some really, really good guards this season. She locked up some of the best guards, Jewel Lloyd, Kalia Copper, finally got a good game against Sabrina Ionescu. Obviously, Sabrina was coming back from a little neck injury, but, they got the win, and she did a phenomenal job with the defense. I think her perimeter defense and the fact that the Connecticut Sun are where they are in the standings, I just like her level of play, and she's somebody who could pick up full court. She's doing the most with her minutes, and her rebounding at the guard level is really good. Somebody that could get downhill, but I just like what she's doing defensively. And I too agree with you with Nafisa. I think what she's doing, and the fact that Minnesota are where they are, and I'm not too sure. I forgot to check on this. If this is a career high for her with blocks per game. But she looks great. She looks great what Nafisa's doing, and she's the head of that monster on the defensive end. So, but for me, it's Dejanay Carrington, Alfred. I like Dejanay Carrington. I like what she's doing this season. So I'm going Defensive Player of the Year, Dejanay Carrington.
Oh, I have no problem with that. Where Dejanay, I would, if you said like give me three, I would have had Dejanay third, because what she's doing in terms of guarding her opponents, locking them up. I love that new emote that she does with the seatbelt. She's locking you up. So I think to see her elevate her game defensively to that, where she's stripping opponents, she's forcing turnovers, deflecting in the passing lane. You really have to give Dejanay Carrington some kudos, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see her put on any of the all defensive teams this season.
Yeah, absolutely. She belongs on that. If she's not on an all defensive team, I'm not gonna lie to you. I've lost all hope in voting if I don't see Dejanay Carrington's name on the all defensive team, and at least top three for Defensive Player of the Year. That's what I want to see. So we're gonna move to Sixth Player of the Year. Sixth Player of the Year. Who do we got for Sixth Player of the Year? As you know, I do my work with New York Liberty Fan TV. I go around Barclays, get a lot from the fans, a lot, speaking to the players and stuff. And for me personally, who I had for Sixth Player of the Year was Kayla Thornton. I really like what Kayla Thornton was doing as the leader off the New York Liberty bench. She's been the one consistent, not necessarily with the numbers, but she's been the consistent in terms of being asked what she's need to do, whether if it's start. I think she started 11 times this season, which is well under the 50% that's needed for her to be eligible to be a six player of the year. She's shooting a career high in her 3-point percentage. I think at 30, it was 38, but I think it dropped down a little bit. But I really love what she's doing. And then I saw a report that ESPN.com put out on August 27th, and I saw that they had Leo as the front runner for sixth player of the year. And I was just like, wow. And I'm like, you know what? They might be right. Like, you know what? They might be right. So I'm be honest with you. I'm in agreement with ESPN. I would really still love to see Kayla Thornton win that award, but I feel like the sixth player of the year award should come home to New York, and it's between Kayla Thornton and Leonie Fibich. But for you, who do you have for that award?
I'm in the same thinking as you. I had either KT or Leo, because when you look at what they've been able to do for this Liberty team, and I briefly spoke about KT on the recent episode of Liberty Unlocked, where Kayla Thornton, she's gonna do all the things you need necessary. She's gonna make life tougher for other offenses because she's going to give you her all defensively. She's going to make the hustle plays that change the tide of the game. But then on the other end of the court, she's going to give you points. She's going to give you scoring. She's going to give you that corner three-pointer that has been money for this Liberty team all season. And then when you look at Leo, at someone at 6'4", who can come off handoffs, can come off of screens, can just shoot the lights out, where it seems like from almost anywhere, but then also use her lengthy frame to intercept passes and just force turnovers. And you can make a point that KT and Leo have made huge plays that have helped the Liberty win games this season. So I don't think you have a wrong choice going either or between KT or Leo and bringing that sixth player of the year to New York.
Oh yeah, let's do that. Let's we're gonna have to split another award. Sorry, so we're gonna split that sixth player here with KT and Leo, and that would be the first ever for something like that to happen. All right, so these last two awards, before single personal awards, Coach of the Year and Executive of the Year. Who do you got for Coach of the Year? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think in terms of who I think may be in consideration, I think some voters may lean towards Cheryl Reeve of Minnesota, just because of maybe where expectations for the Lynx were this season, and how they've surpassed maybe some of these expectations and where they are. To me, I would like to see Coach Brondello of Liberty get Coach of the Year, considering where New York is in terms of offensively and defensively. Per the WNBA advanced stats site, Liberty have the best offensive rating and second best defensive rating in the league. So when you're looking at a team that's just so potent on both ends of the floor, and Coach Brondello is the head tactician of that, I would like to see Coach Brondello get this Coach of the Year in New York.
Yeah, and I'm in agreement with you. I think what Cheryl Reeve is doing is great. I think what Stephanie White is doing is great. But what Sandy Brondello is doing is amazing to me. And like you said, she is at the head of all of this. But I also just want to think about how difficult it is, especially going through an Olympic season. Bringing back, obviously the core, but having these new players, these new rotational players, and having to get people to buy in. First of all, getting a team with the stars and the skill set that this team has, getting this team to buy in itself is just like, wow, you have Hall of Famers, all-stars, MVPs on this team, and it is so unselfish. The way that they want to see each other win, as a team and individually, is great. So I love that. And I think that consistency, I feel like after a season like last year, it's so easy to kind of go downhill, especially not knowing what things will look like, losing somebody like MJ, Stephanie Dawson, that camaraderie, a team chemistry on the bench, and they're at the top. They're at the top. Like they're having a better season than last season. Their defensive rating, yes, they're number 2 this season in their defensive rating. But this current defensive rating would be number 1 last season. So like that's something that I want, you know, people to just like put into perspective. They've gotten better. They've gotten better. So I think it's easy to look ahead and be like, oh yeah, they have all of these superstars and all-stars and not give it to her. But my coach of the year, hands down, is Sandy Brondello, and I'd like to see that come home to the New York Liberty. Now, what do you got for executive of the year? Who do you got for executive of the year? I know not a lot of people like know the execs or worry about the execs much, but it's still an award. Like who do we got for it?
Well, mine is a no-brainer. It has to be Jonathan Kolb of this Liberty franchise, because what he's been able to do, we're talking about a team that went to the finals and got substantially better. You know, he managed to do what you needed to do from an executive this offseason in terms of bringing back the core, you know, getting John Cole to resign. You already knew that you were most likely were going to get Stewie back by coring her, but, you know, getting John Cole back was a big piece. But then also finding a way to retool the bench under the limitations of the hard cap, you know, finding quality pieces at appropriate price points that can also help this Liberty team, but also get quality minutes with this Liberty team. And then also find a way to stockpile assets. We're talking about a Liberty team that brought over Leone, brought over Kennedy Burke from France, you know, brought Ivana Dojkic over to the team, had a first-round pick in Marquisha Davis, had enough cap space to add Jalen Sherrod in the second half of the season, while still, you know, trading for the rights to Rebecca Gardner and still having, you know, the possible rights to Marine and Han. You know, what he's done in terms of retooling this Liberty organization and making sure that the team can be competitive this year, but then also for the foreseeable future. I think you have to give a ton of kudos, because I don't think any other executive, in terms of what he did that at the level for their team.
You couldn't have said it any better, Alfred. You couldn't have said it any better, because I got the same pick. Jonathan Kolb for executive of the year. Hands down, everything that you said and more, because you know, again, just thinking about the difficulty of bringing back this team, having someone like Jonquel Jones, to me, who was, I know a lot of people will say NECA, they'll say Skylar, they'll say, I thought that was the best signing of free agency, was to get someone to come back and buy in. And if you look at Jonquel Jones' contract, you look at Benijah Laney, Sabrina Ionescu's contract, and I believe Kayla Thornton's contract, which they were all able to get their extensions last year, they all tie into each other. Then, you know, when you talk about coring Stewie, this is her first time ever getting cored, but we know where Stewie's head is. Like, she loves New York City. She's going to be here, you know, for the future. So when you just think about all of that, but my biggest piece to me that was like the icing on the cake is Leone Fibish. Like, Leone Fibish is such a great player, and you know, it's hard to even look at her as a rookie. I know she's been playing professionally in Germany, and you know, she's an MVP in the Spanish league, but she is such an amazing player and X factor. I think just looking at Leone Fibish alone is enough to give Jonathan Kolb that executive of the year. And I can tell you this, I know he doesn't care about, you know, a back-to-back executive of the year, and he wants to get that championship more than anything. But again, like I said about the sixth player of the year, if it is not a New York Liberty player, if this executive of the year doesn't go back to JK, I've lost all faith in voting. People are not watching like what's going on right now. So we're in agreement there, man. So that's all I got for you in terms of the individual awards. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to that before
Maybe
we go into
to kind of touch on going back to the executive of the year. And you brought up a good point when we were talking about that, and with Coach Brunell in terms of the buy-in factor with this Liberty organization, because you look at some of the extensions last year. You know, I mean, like Sabrina Ionescu signed her rookie scale extension that was unprotected. You know, and you know, at the time they were limited because of how many protected contracts they had. But you know, to have one of your stars, you know, be willing to sign unprotected and extend them unprotected, that's huge. And, a byproduct of that was now the Liberty had a protected spot that they could now offer to Kennedy Burke, at that vet min to incentivize her to bring her over here. You're looking at KT and Benija, they're willing to shave off some money in free agency because of, what the Liberty organization have built and buying into this. And that's not easy to do, because when you have like Benija Laney and Kayla Thornton and these other players, they could easily be number one options, number two options on other teams. But they're willing to come to this organization, to stay with this organization, buy in, and see the bigger picture of like what's bigger than them and what, all of these parts can be. And I think when you have the right pieces in place, whether it's a Coach Brondell or whether it's an executive like Jonathan Coe, those are going to be the key pieces in terms of getting players to buy in and, really make this team big.
Yeah, and my last point too that I wanted to make too is also the Rebecca Gardner signing, right? That also allowed them flexibility. So we're thinking about, I'm thinking about the future now, because like having somebody like Rebecca Gardner was highly coveted by other teams before this injury, right? So Jonathan Coe making that move to make the call to get Rebecca Gardner over here to do her rehab with HSS. The hospital is like, everybody comes, NBA, WNBA, NHL. If you got a big surgery, if you need recovery, 11 times out of 10, they're coming to HSS. They're coming to New York City. They're going to do their rehab. She's out here getting the best rehab. But I also want to fast forward to next year. And not only just next year, because we've heard it's going to happen 2 years in a row. We're going to have an expansion draft. So they're going to lose players. Like, we're going to lose players. And I know that, the Liberty are able to protect six players. I don't know who they'll protect. But having somebody like, a Rebecca Gardner on your bench, knowing that she's going to get healthy, she may never even play a Liberty game in her life. But the Valkyries might look at her, somebody might look at her. But it also, I think, it protects some of their, it protects the player. Like they have so many good players on this roster. It's kind of like, you know what? If we lose one, this is who could fill in. And that's what I took from that. So, Again, I don't want to get long-winded on it, but I feel like there's so much that we have to look into when we're talking about these Executive of the Year and Coach of the Year awards, because there's like so much more than the X's and O's and just looking at, oh, hey, they just signed 2 All-Stars, and it's the whole storyline in the big picture. So thank you for painting it that way, Alfred. I thought you couldn't have said it any better, to be honest with you.
Great, no, definitely. It's definitely going to be interesting to see, because again, to hedge, with just a ton of assets, knowing that you might lose some players, especially like once we learn the full scope of what the expansion draft rules are, to know that, okay, we may lose a player, but we have a bunch of players that we can now, plug and play in. You talk about Marie Johannes, we talk about having the rights to Hanju. Another player that we haven't even talked about, that I don't think most players even realize, Marine Fatou, who got key minutes for France in the Olympics. The Liberty have the draft rights to her. So, the Liberty have options in terms of, who you can plug and play in case you lose pieces.
And Phoenix's pick for 2025. Let's go. We'll jump into the Executive of the Year. You heard what we have. Now let's jump into the all WNBA teams. Do you are you good for, who do you have on your all WNBA team?
Yeah, so I am kind of agreement with who ESPN had as their consensus. I believe it should be Brianna Stewart, Asia Wilson, Sabrina Ionescu, Alyssa Thomas, and Nafisa Collier.
Okay. I was at the same, but I'm going to remove Alyssa Thomas. I love Alyssa Thomas. I love you. You're on my second team. But I'm removing Alyssa Thomas, and mine was Asia Wilson, Nafisa Collier, Brianna Stewart, Sabrina Ionescu, and Caitlin Clark. I know people are gonna laugh or call me crazy or whatever, but I sincerely believe that her impact and the way that she's been playing, I feel like it's a nod to the first team. And when I asked that. I asked that question, is she going to get an MVP vote or 2, which I think she is. The fact that she even has consideration for that, I think she belongs on that first team. So that's who I got for the first team. And what about your second team? Who do you got for your second team?
Sure. So for the second team, I had Caitlin Clark, Jonquel Jones, Nneka Ogwumike, Kalia Copper, and Skylar Diggins-Smith.
Oh, Skylar. I interviewed her the other day too. Like that was a fun interview. I like that. I actually like that. I wasn't thinking about that. So for me, my second team was I had Jonquel Jones, Alyssa Thomas, Kalia Copper, Jewel Lloyd, but everybody's gonna laugh at my last pick. But in my defense, what she's doing is historic. I picked Angel Reese to be my last one to round it out on that second team. Again, I really want to commend the rookies for what they're doing. The fact that she's leading the league in rebounding in a team where, again, like I said, Jonquel Jones plays in the NBA, in the WNBA. Asia Wilson, Alyssa Thomas, like players like those, and she's at the top of that. I wanted to give her a nod on that second team. But yeah, Skylar Diggins, that's a good one. But yeah, for me, for the guards, I had Jewel Lloyd, Kalia Copper. The bigs, Jonquel Jones, Alyssa Thomas, and Angel Reese. That was my second team.
No, I mean, I completely understand where you're coming from because, again, it's, I think it's been quite a while where we've had, multiple rookies like Caitlin and Angel Reese just be able to come in and have the effect and have the dominance that they've had. So I completely wouldn't fault you if you were a voter and that was your path. So.
I know people gonna be watching and they're like, I'm glad he's not a voter. That's cool. All right, so let's move to the all rookie team. Who's on your all rookie team? What do you got for that?
Cool. So yeah, for all rookie, I have Caitlin and Angel. That's the two bona fide. They have to be on that all rookie team. But then I round mines out with Leonie, Rickea Jackson, and Camila Cardoso.
We got the same exact rookie team. Ain't no argument here for me, Alfred. Ain't no argument here. I got Caitlin Clark, Leo, Rickea Jackson, Angel Reese, and Camila Cardoso. The one I struggled with that I don't have names here, was the defensive team. Like, who do you got for defensive team? Because for me, like going off top, I have Asia Wilson, I have Nafisa Collier, I have Dejanay Carrington, I have Brianna Stewart. But the last one I was kind of struggling with was like, do I want to go Ezzy? I'm not too sure who I would take with that last one. But let me hear your team. Who do you got for your all defensive team, first team?
Yeah, I think that would be my line of thinking. At least have, Asia, Brianna Stewart, Visa. I wouldn't be mad with Dejanay Carrington first team all defense because what she's doing could definitely warrant that. But yeah, that last spot, I mean, Ezzy Magbago wouldn't be a bad selection. I know some might question maybe putting Alyssa Thomas, on there, considering like what she does on the defensive end. I think it's a bit wide open. I mean, could you see maybe Jonquel Jones or some, and end up on that list as well, considering what Jonquel has been able to do defensively herself. But yeah, I think, you tackle probably the bulk of who would be on that first team. I think the second team is where it gets a bit interesting on who the voters decide to put into that selection. But one that I don't think we actually covered, I don't think we got into most improved.
Absolutely did not. Thank you for that, Alfred. I appreciate that. We did not get into most improved. Absolutely. We cannot not go into most improved. Al, who do you got for most improved, man?
For me, I would like to see Dearica Hamby win most improved player. I know some will go to like a Dejanay, or some may pick Kennedy, who definitely would be deserving of that as well. But I just think from where Dearica was last year, and even in previous years with Vegas, to like where she is now with the Los Angeles Sparks, to go from just under 9 points a game to now averaging almost 18 points a game, being really like that de facto leader that the Sparks have needed this season, just, scoring relentlessly in the paint. Her rebounding is there, her defense is there, being able to occasionally spot up. I think how Dearica has just elevated her game, to me, is just a little bit more than where some other considerations would be.
Yeah, and I'm 100% in agreement with you, because also I did read the ESPN, and I think they had Dejanay at leading in that most improved, and I was disappointed to not see. I think they had Dejanay and Sabrina after her. So first of all, for me, I'm like, don't even put Sabrina on most improved. That's disrespect to her in a good way, because I feel like she should get a little MVP nod too. But Dearica Hamby for me was hands down 100%. So even when I at the start of the season, when it was time as the first day for all-star voting, I made sure that she was on my ballot, because obviously she belongs there. I think she's a 3-time all-star now. but 2 or 3-time All-Star. But she's an amazing player. Her play this season, she was averaging a double-double for most of the season. She was one of the leading rebounders. She has her signature wins against the Aces. Everything that she's going through, I 100% agree. I think our most improved should be De'Arica Hamby. So I hope, I hope the people who have the votes get to tune in and see these episodes or get to see some of these. I can't wait to put these up in clips and flood inboxes with these. But check out De'Arica Hamby and what she's doing. I know people will look at it and say, oh, her minutes are up. She went from 6 women to starting role, but I think what she has brought to the table and what she's doing for that Sparks organization, it could be much worse for the Sparks fans who are in a rebuilding mode. But I'll tell you this, things will look a lot brighter if, they turn out and get that number 1 pick and Paige Beckers is sitting there and, just look at the future. Having De'Arica Hamby there is a good thing. But again, most improved, I 100% agree that should go to De'Arica Hamby.
I completely agree with you.
WNBA playoffs start on September 22nd. And of course, very WNBA-like, we do not have a playoff schedule, but we should get that full playoff schedule on the 21st. If the WNBA, knowing the WNBA, I kid. But we don't have the schedule yet, but we do know, a lot of teams, 7 teams have clinched playoff spots. That 8th seed, who do you think is going to round out the playoffs right now? Because, just looking at those standings real quick, we have in that 8th seed, we have Chicago and Atlanta tied at 12 and 22. We got Washington at 10, 11 and 23. We got Dallas, one of my biggest disappointments, right behind, not right behind, but they're at 9 and 25. And then we got the Sparks, the last in the league, at 7 and 27. So what are your thoughts on this 8th seed right here? How does it go?
Yeah, this is a bit tricky because, Chicago, Atlanta, and Washington, I think is a bit of a toss-up right now with them. Dallas, has a little bit of work to do if they really want to be in that contention for the 8th spot. Atlanta's going to have tough sledding. They don't have Cheyenne Parker-Tyus for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
So, how they are able to, win games, that's going to be a key factor. But I think you probably have to go with maybe Chicago or Atlanta. I think in the case of Atlanta also, they don't have their pick, I believe, for 2025, considering that pick is owned by the Mystics. So, there's no necessarily no reason to miss the playoffs or feel like you're going to get a higher pick. So I'm going to go with either Chicago or Atlanta.
Okay, Chicago or Atlanta. Again, for me, I would love to see Chicago in that spot. The team that disappoints me the most, because I thought they were going to sneak up and make a run while everybody's saying Atlanta, Chicago. I thought it was going to be the Dallas Wings, but boom! Last night, the Dallas Wings had an opportunity to beat Atlanta. And Alfred, I don't know if you checked into that game, if you got to see anything that went on with that game, but I believe Dallas was up by I don't even know what to say. I don't know what to say. I think they were up by as much as 20 points. I'm just, guesstimating right now, but I was looking at the score back and forth and I'm like, oh, Dallas has this. And then I checked back in and Dallas was down. They were down. Atlanta tied the game and then they had a 2-point lead and I was like, oh, no way they're gonna lose this. And then I shut it off and then I came back to it and Dallas was really down. So Dallas, I don't have them anymore in this because I really wanted to see Enrique in the playoffs, Sato in the playoffs. I think those are phenomenal players and you would want to see that. But yeah, Chicago or Atlanta, they look like they're the ones. We'll see how that pans out.
Yeah, I did catch some of that Wings game, and I find it funny how the Wings have been, a part of these crazy, teams have big leads and then blow. Because I think you had the Sparks where they were up big against Dallas recently, and then Dallas came back and that lead evaporated. Now Dallas finds themselves kind of on the other foot. But yeah, it's going to be a very interesting, if Dallas isn't able to clinch the spot, that offseason is going to be very peculiar for them on what they want to do.
Are there any playoff matchups that you are like, yo, I really want to see this matchup? Because if the playoffs started today, so we would have the New York Liberty versus the Chicago Sky. We would have Minnesota Lynx versus the Phoenix Mercury. We would have Connecticut Sun versus the Indiana Fever, and we would have Las Vegas Aces versus the Seattle Storm.
I think the two that I would definitely want to see most is Connecticut versus Indiana and Vegas versus Seattle. On the Connecticut versus Indiana front, I think that would be an interesting matchup when you consider the layers of it. Whereas Connecticut's been this franchise that's had, successful year after successful year, deep playoff runs. Now facing this Indiana team that's now trying to be this upstart and now have deep playoff runs of themselves. And, what a test it would be for Indiana for a first round matchup, dealing with like the physicality of Alyssa Thomas and Bree Jones, plus that savvy experience and vet experience. That would be a good, litmus test for them to see, can we really be playoff contenders in the coming years? And then Vegas versus Seattle. I think that's a star-studded matchup when you think of who's on both sides. You think of Asia, Kelsey, Jackie, and others on one side versus, Skylar Diggins-Smith, Jewel, Nneka, Ezzy. And I think they match up pretty well when you think of like the talent that's on both sides. And, that could possibly be a series where could Seattle upset Vegas in round one? That just so many layers happening there. That would be a good matchup to see.
Yeah, that would really be a great matchup to see. And I'm with you. I think that that's the one. I really hope 4 and 5 stays that way, because I would love to see that first round for them. And do you have any bold predictions for this playoffs? Do you have any bold predictions? Do you think we'll see any upsets? What you got?
I would say mine would be, is depending on how it goes. If the Indiana Fever continue this momentum, I would not be surprised if we see a semifinals matchup between possibly the Liberty and the Fever, depending on how it goes. But if that's on the side of the bracket and, New York and Indiana have to play each other, I think that would be really fun. And, just think about like all the matchups, Sabrina versus Caitlin Clark and, Jonquil versus Aaliyah, just so many things there. I think that would be a good one.
Yeah, that would be a great one. I like that. I'm in agreement with you too. My bold prediction, but again, how it has to play out, that I would love to see though, is for the New York Liberty and the Indiana Fever to see each other, but in the conference finals. I would just love for the standings to end where it could kind of end that way, where they could see each other in those conference, not conference finals, in those semis. But I think that would be dope. That would be super dope. Like, just to see that. I don't want to see Kate. I don't know what team wants to see the Indiana Fever, because again, I feel like it's a home game for them every game with what Caitlin Clark has been able to do with just her fans and everything. It's a little bit different in New York. A lot of Caitlin Clark fans are in New York, but there's a lot of New Yorkers here too. So once they hear all that, they'll be able to drown it out. But these other cities, like, you guys stand no chance in like having a home game sometimes. I seen Dallas Seitu talking about it the other day, a little bit being disappointed in Dallas fans. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this playoffs go and how these matchups go. But before we go, the finals prediction. Do you have a finals prediction? Who will we see in the WNBA finals this year?
I think it depends on the brackets, but I think a good finals matchup would either be a rematch between the Aces and Liberty, and kind of seeing the Liberty push through against the team that beat them last season. But I think a good challenge would be New York versus Minnesota, considering how Minnesota may have had New York's number a little bit at times. New York was able to get a win, but to kind of see now New York exercise those demons and really, show that they are the top dog of the W.
Yeah, and I agree with you too. I think and I hope to see Minnesota and New York in the finals, because even though I wouldn't be excited to go to Minnesota for the finals, I think Minnesota is a lot like the New York Liberty team from last year. Just sitting in that second seed. They do a lot of really good things. Kayla McBride, number one with the 3-point shooting, like Sabrina was last year. And winning the Commissioner's Cup, and just things of that nature. And I feel like that loss that the Liberty took at the Commissioner's Cup was also a little bit kind of like the Aces and Liberty matchup last year. It was kind of like, it started off as a blowout. This team will blow out at home. This team will blow out at home. It was just tight. And I feel like that's where things are going with this Minnesota team. The difference between this Minnesota team and the Liberty team from last year is that I feel that they have a little more I feel like they're just a little bit more patient in the way that they play, and they have a little more not necessarily faith in themselves, but they're a little bit more patient. And I felt like they played with each other a little bit longer, some of their core and everything like that. So that's the only difference for me. But I do think we will probably see a New York and Minnesota Lynx in the WNBA finals. Anything else you want to discuss on that before we move to the next?
No, I think that's a great way to close it.
All right, bet. Topic 4, rising stars in the league. Just want to highlight any emerging talents, anybody that you think is a rising star in the WNBA, anybody that stands out that we haven't spoken a lot about this season because they might have been overshadowed by, Caitlin Clark or, Angel Reese, and just speak about that. Do you think there's any rising stars in this league that we should look at?
Oh, I have to go with Reese Jackson because I think, she's someone. I put a tweet out last night that, she could be a superstar in this league in the coming years.
I saw that tweet, yeah.
6'2" with a handle, can shoot, can create over players. You're just seeing such a polished player in year one that you're really curious to see, how does this look like with more development, with her learning more nuances of the game and, really becoming comfortable with that, just seeing that. And I'm excited to see what the future holds for Reese Jackson, the god sister of Benijah Laney Hamilton. So maybe that's where she gets a little bit of her polished game from. But I'm very curious to see what she can do. And then just maybe give a shout out to Cam Brink, who was showing a little bit of potential. She was averaging 2.3 blocks before she went down. But really excited to see Cam Brink come back healthy and, show us all again, what she's capable of.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Reese Jackson she's real deal. She could really ball. And I really thought, for me, out of this whole rookie class, who I thought was the most WNBA ready and was going to have a great season, but I'm really disappointed in how they're being used, is Aaliyah Edwards. When you look at how where Washington is in the standings, you know that they're rebuilding. I really wanted to see a lot of Aaliyah Edwards basketball. I wanted to see her play more. But I thought she was the most WNBA ready, and I still think that she's really good. So I think when we get to see her, I think it's also going to be good. Another person that I want to mention that we have not seen at all is Nika Mule. Okay, so because she had a really good interview, and I she said it, I'm paraphrasing, but she said, I'm working my butt off. I'm working my ass off. You don't see me in the game, but don't think that I'm just sitting here doing handshakes, and she's working her behind off. And, she's working behind players like Skylar Diggins-Smith. She's working behind Jewel Lloyd. She's working behind Nneka Ogwumike is in her locker room. So I know a lot of new fans are going crazy, and they talk that talk. Oh, Nika Mule doesn't get in, and this, that, and the third. But this is a really, really big learning process and growing process to go from college in the WNBA. Nika Mule is different in the sense she comes from the UConn program, so UConn players are different. They're different. I even look at Aaliyah Edwards when I say that she was the most WNBA ready. I'm saying that because not only her style of play, but she comes from Coach Gino's umbrella. So that's why I'm saying that. But when Nika Mule gets her time to get in next year, whenever it is, I think she is going to do such a phenomenal job at being one of those impact players, which is her defense, being able to knock down a three. It's going to be good. I can't wait to see it. So rising stars, we definitely got Nika Mule. We definitely got Reese Jackson, Aaliyah Edwards, Cam Brink. I think JC Sheldon is also really good too. So the future is going to look great for the W. So you got anybody else that you want to?
Not at this moment, but I wanted to tap back into that Nika Mule thing, and I like that you brought up, what she said about, she's working really hard in the practices and whatnot, because before the season, I had the opportunity to interview assistant coach at Liberty, Renika Hodges, about her career and whatnot. And one thing that she said that stood out to me was that, when she started out early, like, she didn't get maybe the most minutes, but she said that the practices were her games. So, for a player like Nika Muir, where she may not be able to get those in-game reps to really go hard against players like Skylar Diggins-Smith, Jewel Lloyd, and Nneka Ogwumike, stuff like that is definitely going to give her a little bit of that boost and a little bit of that development. So when it's time for those games, she's ready.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point, man. That's a great point. I love that. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to see what she brings to the table. So it's gonna be super dope. Our last topic, I do want to speak about. I want to shift the focus a little bit. Is just talk about the WNBA and the social justice initiatives, because historically you always seen the WNBA and their social initiatives. You see that this is a very mixed league. You have people that walk from all creeds of life, that they want to be heard, and they stand up for a lot. And most recently, I want to speak about their social justice campaigns and their initiatives, where we saw Liberty players, we saw WNBA players all around, just wearing impact shirts to go vote. Empower women, things like that. We seen Benijah Laney Hamilton walk in. They just straight up, they ain't even say none of the slogans or nothing. They straight up had Kamala on their shirt. they that's what all it was. So I just want to speak about, your thoughts on the WNBA and their social initiatives, and just them putting out a message to get everybody out to vote.
I think it's important because, the WNBA has always been at the forefront of activism and trying to affect change. You mentioned Benijah Laney. She was a part of that Atlanta Dream Team in 2020 that was really the first to thrust Raphael Warnock into the spotlight. Vote Warnock t-shirts. We've seen the W at times have initiatives for, against gun violence and promotion of, gun safety and things like that. So I think the players realize they have the platform to affect change, and the league is willing to let them have it. And, you talk about them walking from, all cultures of life. Someone like Niara Savali on the Liberty, if you get to talk to her, she always talks about, like how New York's a melting pot, kind of like how Berlin was, growing up for her. So these players come from different backgrounds. They understand people from all walks of life, and they understand that they have the power and the voice to affect change. And, if you're going to have those tools at your at your hands, basically, might as well go out and do it. And I think you have to give the WNBA a ton of credit for what they've done. We even see it with the Commissioner's Cup, with some of what they do in terms of trying to raise money for different charities and different causes. So the WNBA really does put that at the forefront, and I think it's good to see.
Yeah, I think it's great to see, like, the initiatives that the WNBA does. So shout out to the W. Continue to keep doing it. Keep having a voice for those who don't have a voice, and encourage people to go vote. And November's coming up really soon, guys, so definitely go vote. If you're not registered to vote, go do that. My last, because we are going to get back to basketball, this in conclusion, because we got to get into conclusion. This was a nice long episode, Alfred. I appreciate you for coming. Any final thoughts on this? So as the W continues to grow, what changes would you like to see? Are there any additions or subtractions that you would like to see from the current structure of the WNBA? Because it's very new. A lot's going on. There's going to be an influx of money coming in. I don't know if they have the bandwidth to do everything that they want to do right now, but what changes would you like to see? Any additions or anything? What's up?
Yeah, sure. So I think one of the main additions I'd like to see is see if we can get a little bit more cap flexibility for teams, seeing if there are more things that executives can do to, retain players. And, one other thing that I would be interested to see if the W ever considers is, as we get more of these expansion teams set and more of these roster spots set and more securities for players, will we get to a point where we may see players be able to just come out of college for a year, come out of college for 2 years? Because when you look at players like the Juju Watkins and the Hannah Hidalgos, who have been electric as freshmen and, will continue to have a spectacular collegiate career, could we see the WNBA have the infrastructure to allow players to come out early and earn, money earlier and, just have a longer career?
Oh yeah, I like that a lot. I like that a lot. So my things that I would like to see, And I guess it also goes in with cap flexibility. I like that a lot. I would definitely like to see the cap flexibility. I'd like to see the salary cap grow a lot. But I would like to see more roster spots. I would like to see a 15-player roster as opposed to a 12-player roster. And then another thing that I would like to see is I don't know how you feel about it. I don't know how people feel about it. I want to see them play 12-minute quarters, man. I know it's 2 extra minutes. Give them their 8 extra minutes. They don't got to play 10 minutes. Like, they are very capable. Give them their 12-minute quarters. That's something that I would like to see. More roster spots, 12-minute quarters, and definitely would just want to see more teams grow. I thought about the what you were saying about the 2 years, right? Like, being able to maybe even 2 and done and come out of college. But the fact that the WNBA is so it's only 12 teams going on to 13 for right now, it's so hard to do that because all of these people might try to one and done, and it's I don't have a spot for you necessarily. I don't have playtime for you. But like you said, looking at the growth with seeing all of these teams come in, I don't know how many teams we're going to get to commit to come in and get a WNBA team. Is Charlotte going to try to get back into the picture? Is Houston going to try to get back into the picture? It's going to take a lot of capital. So I feel like that's something we'll see, in the next 10, 20 years or something like that. But the cap flexibility, I like that a lot. Would love to see that. And roster spots and 12-minute quarters for me.
I think, Kenny, when you talk about, wanting more roster spots and then the 2 years, that kind of, you can even say that ties into what I was talking about earlier with the international scene, because with the rules of setup, international players can kind of come in early. You can get drafted at 19 versus most collegiate players are getting drafted at 22. So they're getting a chance to develop and play professionally overseas if they're a drafting stash, or if they come into the W earlier, they're actually getting that high level of pro development that a player that's 22 will have to wait years for. Where we've seen W players come in and they don't really hit their stride maybe till 25, 26. Whereas you look at a player like Leonie Fevich. Leonie's a 2-time overseas MVP, and she's hitting the ground running. So kind of even in maybe that parity a little bit to where now players can actually become a pro earlier and really get their chance to test the waters rather than maybe having to go overseas, but play in the W earlier.
So would you like to see the W get something like a G League?
Oh, I definitely would be interesting to see if they can do that, because I know a lot of players have concerns with playing overseas because obviously you're learning a different language. There's just so many things you have to factor into when you're going overseas. But where you're able to stay home, there's probably a bit more, or less nerve-wracking, I should say.
Yeah.
Seen things like AU. Some have thought about AU possibly being that G League where we've seen players like Zaya Cook and Jordan Canada and Kelsey Mitchell go through it, and they've elevated their games through it to some extent. Now you have Unrivaled, which is with Brianna Stewart and Nafisa Collier's league, where they're spearheading it. So there's growing opportunities here in the U.S., but I think a specific league for players to develop, I would totally love it.
Yeah, same here, man. Same. That would be amazing. But we're gonna see a lot of changes in the W in general. Again, there's an influx of money coming in. It's not just with Caitlin Clark kind of spearheaded where everything is going. But I also want to just go back to players like Brianna Stewart when it was time for free agency. How vocal Brianna Stewart was, and when we were talking about the charter flights and everything, there was a lot of Brianna Stewart's one of my favorite players in the sense of outside of basketball, what she does, the fight that she puts up. Same thing with Nneka Ogwumike. I think Nneka Ogwumike is going to make a great commissioner in this league when it's all said and done. If she chooses, she wants to do that in her life. She would I'd vote for her 1,000,000 times to be commissioner of the league when that time, if that time ever comes. But these players are real deal in terms of the initiatives and things that they're that they're trying to do. So I look forward to just having these discussions and stuff like that with just the way that this future of this sport is growing. And like I said, the influx of money, the eyes are on it. We can't screw this up. We have to do right by the W. We have to take all the opportunities that it brings and get down with it and continue to support it. Alfred, that is all I have today. I appreciate you for tapping in and coming and discussing Bucket for Bucket podcast. Today's episode, again, we discussed the WNBA. We discussed Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese. We discussed WNBA season awards. We discussed obviously the playoffs and, you know, just some more stuff. You can find me at nylftv.com. Al, could you please drop your Twitter? I definitely will drop it so everybody has that. But again, thank you for coming through. And do you want to, you know, sign out and let the people know anything? You got anything that we should be looking out for?
Sure. So thanks again. First, thanks for having me on, Kenny. Really appreciate chopping up with you. You can find me on Twitter, now known as X, at Alford Corriette, ALFCORRIETTE. In terms of anything coming up, you know, just continue to look forward for Liberty content, you know, throughout the duration of the season, the playoffs, and after the season, definitely look out because I love to cover the European side of things. So you may see things from me uncovering EuroLeague, Euro Cup, covering the Australian League with the WNBA. So I'll be covering all of the stuff internationally, keeping tabs on stuff. So definitely look out if you want to see what's happening outside of the U.S.
Dope. That's super dope, man. Alfred, appreciate you 100%. We'll definitely and shout out to you for your work on the Liberty Unlocked the other day. I will drop the link in the YouTube as well on this video with what you did on that. That was super dope. And before I go, because like I said, you know, the WNBA jobs are growing and stuff like that. If ever you needed to tap into a WNBA job, Alfred, I think you need to tap into the scouting, the head of scouting, because what you do, your work with the international players, you know, even like just looking at players before they even get to get to professional level. I think that's super dope, man. So if you haven't ever thought about that, definitely think about something like that, because like the gems and information that you provide on X is amazing. And I've even gone and like researched stuff just off of some of your tweets. So keep doing the great work, keep doing what you do, and thank you for the motivation and inspiration. So like again, if there's ever a WNBA scouting job or something like that, Al, go check that out, man. Go check that out, bro.
No, I appreciate the kind words. That would be definitely fun to do one day. I'm always looking, and you know, I love the scouting side of things. I just love looking at the game in that way. But then also, you have to give credit to you for what you do in terms of, you know, bringing the experience of what it is to be a Liberty fan to life. You know, definitely love your work interviewing Liberty fans. Definitely love your work, you know, highlighting this team. You know, I saw the stuff with you and Jason Sudeikis and Flavor Flav. So, you know, definitely check that out because, you know, you definitely bring a new layer to how we can see the Liberty.
Thank you, man. Appreciate that. This is Bucket for Bucket. I am Kenny Saint-Vil. That is Alford Corriette. We will see you soon, man. Thank you so much.
Bucket for bucket, let's go shot for shot. Bucket for bucket, let's go shot for shot. I called the night, so let's see who better.